Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every month we pick a new theme to explore all across film history and cinema. And this week, we're talking about...
John Carpenter.
Yes, this entire month we're doing a John Carpenter retrospective. We're looking at 5 of the movies that kind of encapsulate his career, in particular his flawless 12-year run from 76 to 88. And what are we watching today?
Today we're watching Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh, I love this movie. This movie's great.
Yeah, I had never seen this before, wasn't really sure what to expect. I ended up really enjoying the film.
Nice. So you never heard of it before?
I'd heard of it, I just had never watched it.
Okay. Going into it, did you have any expectations? Did you think it was going to be a really bad kind of Carpenter proving himself movie?
No, I'd heard good things about it, and I didn't watch the trailer going in. I really wanted to go in knowing nothing. Mm-hmm. And it really exceeded all the things that I built up in my head that what it could possibly be. Because, it kept me going the entire way. I was just like, okay, they're not going to be able to top this. So I was just like, what? That happened? And then it kept going and going.
It's a movie that has a lot of tension, a lot of suspense, and then it finally explodes. Yeah. And when it explodes, it explodes.
No, it literally explodes.
Exactly. The movie, it's a little bit of a horror movie. It's a little bit of a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Western.
It's a little bit of a Western. And it's really masterfully done, even though, none of the villains have any lines in the movie.
No, and which I think that's kind of genius because there's a lot of inspirations that Carpenter took to make this film, but one was Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. And he was like, I want this gang to be like the zombies ascending onto the house. And it's like, yeah, that's the feel that you get. There's just more and more of them coming. They're not saying anything, and I think the fact that they're not talking at all makes them even more terrifying.
Exactly, and it also completely removes the idea that these gang members are human. Carpenter does not want you as the audience to be like, oh, they're gang members, they're from this rough neighborhood, and this is the lifestyle they're in. It's no, these are ghouls or zombies or monsters in the darkness. That's
no
what
sympathy.
They are.
These are just monsters coming after you, and they won't stop until you're dead. And the fact that they're so crafty in the way that they do things...
It's supernatural.
It's genius.
It's supernatural to an extent, because there's this big old shootout, and they look out, and our heroes look out the window after the shootout, and all the bodies are gone. And all the
cars are gone.
Yeah, everything's set up, and it looks like nothing's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so eerie. That's the other thing. The movie feels like it's these normal people against a supernatural force.
Yeah.
Which I think is a lot that comes back in Carpenter's filmography. You see it obviously in The Fog.
The Fog.
You can even say in Halloween, which is his next movie.
Christine,
that's a big one. They Live, The Thing. Mm-hmm. It's people put against this unknowable or supernatural force and trying to
basically survive the night.
Yeah. And oh God, this is a good movie. So where do you want to start? Do you want context? Do you want the plot? Where do you want to go with this?
I think you should give me a little bit of context since this is new to me. It might be new to some of our listeners.
Yeah, and if you're new to this, that's not surprising because this movie comes out in 1976. This is John Carpenter's first real movie. He makes this after Dark Star, which you can watch for free right now on Tubi.
Mm-hmm. Along with this film. And Dark Star is, I'll lovingly say, a very ambitious student film. He made it as a student film at USC with Dan O'Bannon. He wanted it to be his calling card, but you watch it and you're like, this is a no-budget film. It's impressive for a student film, but it's a student film. So he's bouncing around trying to get work. He writes a couple of spec scripts. He writes Eyes and this movie. And then he realizes that he will never direct a film unless he funds it himself because no one wants to buy his scripts. So he takes Siege, reworks it because it's originally a Western, and decides, I'm going to make this. I'm going to make Assault on Precinct 13. I'm going to make this my calling card movie. So he gets all of his film buddies, and kind of borrows all the money from his friend's parents.
Mm-hmm.
His favorite quote of raising money is, "I'm glad I went to school with rich kids."
Yeah.
And he scrounges up like $100,000 and puts this movie together, which this does not look like $100,000 movie.
No. It has that low budget kind of feel, but it makes it more documentary style, which is another style that they were trying to go with this by giving us the times and the dates on things, so you feel like you're progressing with them throughout the day. And I think that kind of works with this film because it makes you feel like you're in it in the moment with them.
Yeah, the movie definitely has this gritty quality that I feel we lose in later Carpenter films, but that might just be because the person who shoots this is Douglas Knapp, who he shoots Dark Star, he shoots this, and then he does like Star Trek and TV work after this, but he doesn't really direct, or he doesn't really shoot feature films after this. But you can tell the camera is a lot rougher.
Yeah.
Especially the opening sequence where it's the gang members and they're in that like corridor and then the cops like ambush them. It's all handheld and it's real dirty and gritty.
I mean, that kind of camera work gave me such Halloween vibes. You know, looking down the stairs and the lighting. I was like, okay, this is really cool. This feels very Carpenter. And I mean, yeah, we have this ambush on the gang members. And they just die. It's like 2 minutes into the movie. You've got like a bunch of dead bodies on the floor, and it's like, okay, where are we gonna go now?
Oh yeah, the movie opens with cops just slaughtering this group of gang members. And that's what Carpenter wanted to do, because he wanted to make a movie that made a statement. He took inspiration from Rio Bravo, he took inspiration from Night of the Living Dead, and he's like, I want to go a step farther than Night of the Living Dead. I want to make people know John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And the movie gets going, and we have that opening sequence where where the cops just ambush these guys. There's no warning shots. They just unload with a bunch of shotguns on guys.
Yeah.
And then we cut to 4 warlords, I guess you can call them, just silently in their evil lair, swearing a fucking blood oath.
Yeah, I was just like, what is going on? Because it looked like they were sitting in church pews. I'm like, are you guys like in an abandoned church making a blood oath? For what?
The cops killed their boy, so they gotta make revenge, you know? That's some, like, hardcore shit right there.
I mean, it just seems unsanitary. Okay, let's share the same knife, bleed out, get some dust and grime in those wounds.
This is 78. This is back when, you know, you could still probably buy heroin over the counter. Come on now.
Was it just, you know, cocaine and Coca-Cola?
When did they stop putting cocaine in Coke? Or in Coca-Cola?
I have no idea.
Note to self, we'll look into that. But
I drink Dr. Pepper.
It's one of those weird things that the movie opens like this. Because it's just driving into the audience that these guys are not human.
They're not good.
They're not good. They're cutting themselves. They're doing this weird ritual, I can use words, and it's so like, you're so like confused, but you're just compelled to figure out what's going on, and then it just cuts right into middle of the day. Lieutenant Bishop's waking up and he's gonna go into work, and Lieutenant Bishop is played by Austin Stoker, and I wonder if Carpenter's doing another homage to Night of the Living Dead here.
Yeah.
Because this movie is made in 76, and Lieutenant Bishop he's an African-American man, he's playing a police officer, and throughout the movie, he is nothing but, like, the upstanding paragon of good.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie. And Austin Stoker, he played, like, police officers in TV before this, but I believe his major film work was in, like, a couple, like, Pam Grier, Coffee, like, blaxploitation films. This is still at the heart of blaxploitation. I still don't think we get, like, a upstanding African-American lead other than Sidney Poitier.
I guess, I don't know. You're the one that took all the film classes, so...
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I think he's just a really interesting thing, because we have him, he's waking up, he's going to start his day as a fresh lieutenant in the LA police force.
Well, I mean, we even see him encounter the prisoners when they finally arrive at his precinct that he's closing down. he treats them like human beings. And it goes more towards his character where he's very humane versus some of the other characters that we see in the film that are just, we've got the gang members that are just unlawful, bad, or evil.
They're like robotic. They are living guns, basically.
Yeah, and then we have, other people in the force that, kind of just throw the inmates around, and then you have him where he actually makes eye contact and he speaks to them like they're actually people, because they are.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because Bishop goes to work and he gets to the precinct and they're like, it's gonna close down. Like, you're basically just on watch duty because this precinct is gonna be poof, up in smoke. And parallel to that, like you said, we get to see the prisoners interacting with other police officers, with the warden. Mm-hmm. And in those prisoners, the true star of this film.
Yes.
Napoleon Wilson, played by Darwin Jostin, has one of the most compelling faces I have ever seen.
Yeah, I was surprised. I wasn't sure who I was going to walk out of the film loving. And I was like, really? Napoleon? I'm like, that dude had so much charisma. I was like, okay, I can fuck with this. He's a cool guy.
And it's crazy because Darwin Jostin, he doesn't really become a star after this. You know what he does after Assault on Precinct 13, and basically what he was doing beforehand?
No idea.
He was a Teamsters driver.
Cool.
He would drive stuff. He was on the transportation team of, like, the American President, like that Rob Reiner movie. And he would work as a driver for, like, movie sets, and he would moonlight as an actor to make ends meet. And I'm like, this guy is a movie star.
Yeah.
He is delivering lines that if anyone else said would be ridiculous.
It's that charisma and charm, and the whole him embodying Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, he is every cool Western character just rolled up into one. He can throw the withering one-liners out there. He can say something as dumb as, "Man, you look like you got spit in your shoe," and I'm like, that line said by 99% of anyone else on this planet would be ridiculous.
No, I think he said, "Who spit in your socks?"
That's even worse.
Something like that, because the other inmate, what's his name? Like
Wells.
Yeah, this is when he's like freaking out and he wants to get out of there, and he's like, why are you acting like someone spit in your socks? And even he kind of stopped, like, huh?
Who says that?
And I was like, why would someone spit in my socks? That's gross.
Also, Wells, played by Tony Burton, he's another actor who is so good in this.
Oh yeah.
And he goes on after this to be in, like, the Rocky movies. He's one of Apollo's cornermen.
Yeah.
I have no idea what his name is in those movies.
No, and I was even trying to remember, I'm like, is it Apollo's team? Like, I forget what they call it in boxing when you have, like...
He's either, like, the cut man or something. He's in his corner.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating because he is giving, like, a hard, like, studied performance in this. Yeah. And he is freaking out, and he's funny. That's the thing. All the characters in this are good. Well, even the female characters.
He's also sincere, too, because he's seated next to the sick inmate, and he's just pushing and trying to tell them, it's not a cold. This guy is, hacking up a lung. You need to get him help. And it was kind of reminding me of Con Air with Nick Cage and his cellmate, where his cellmate, has the diabetes, and he's just like, he is sick, you need to help him. And it's like, we got it reversed, where he's just, he's sick, help him. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's where he got some of his inspiration for his performance, because, he's just really going to bat for this, inmate that he probably doesn't know just from being next to him for a couple months or weeks, however that works.
Well, I feel like you could probably draw a lot of lines to a bunch of other movies with Assault on Precinct 13, because it's like the best siege movie.
Yeah.
It is, in line with, like, Night of the Living Dead and stuff like that, but I could see people taking homage from this, but I almost forgot. The female characters in this, because it's 1976.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of well-written female characters now, but oh my word, Lee?
I think it's Lee.
Lee, played by Lori Zimmer, is so good.
She's a badass. I loved her.
She is the bad bitch.
I had to look her up because she looked so familiar. I still haven't been able to figure it out. I think there's another actress that she looks like. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't, put a face to the name. But, when I was searching for her on IMDb, she doesn't have a lot of movies that she's done before or after this.
Her career is like 5 years.
And I was just like...
And it ends with like some French short film, and that's it. And she does like 4 movies.
They needed to put her in some more action movies because she kicked fucking ass. I mean, she gets shot in the arm and she's there trying to cinch it up herself. Mm-hmm. She's still, ready to shoot. She's got a fling going on with Napoleon. And
I love that because it's like a romance thing, and it's so subtle. And you're sitting there and you're like, do they like each other? What's going on? And then Napoleon gives his line. He's like, anybody got a smoke? And she just puts the cigarette in his mouth. And he's like, got a light, lights it. And I'm like, there's so much sexual tension right now. I could cut it with a knife.
You don't even need the knife. It's just going to fall apart on its own because it's just...
It's so juicy.
It's so tender. But that's a whole thing that Napoleon's going through, as soon as we first see him on the screen, is he's asking somebody for a smoke. And, either people don't engage with him or they don't really answer his question. It's not until we meet Bishop, where Bishop actually gives him an answer and tells him, I don't smoke, but if I find one...
I'll let you know.
And, Napoleon's kind of like, whoa, you're talking to me like I'm a human being, not like, I've got the jumpsuit on and I'm a bad guy, just, one guy talking to another guy.
That's something that I love in this movie, is how there's so many subtle things going on. Like, Lee is all over that. Yeah. Like, she's really stone-faced, she's very, like, kind of quiet, and she has, like, that steely blue gaze, mm-hmm. where she's not really giving a lot, but you can tell that she's like, oh, Bishop, you're kind of cute. They're having, like, their thing going on, and her and Napoleon, it's all over that. But with Napoleon, whenever he's talking to somebody, he's like, anybody got a smoke? And it's just him sizing up people. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, with Bishop, the subtlety there is that there's no subtlety. He is as, Boy Scout as can be, and it's so good because he's a Boy Scout, but he's not lame. He's not dumb. No one's dumb in these movies.
No. And I feel like Napoleon, when, he gets the smoke from Lee, it's kind of like, I've met my match. And I don't know if it's just me, but the two of them kind of give me like a film noir couple kind of feel. Like, let's turn it black and white. Let's get some suits and some, some dresses, and we've got, a power couple.
That's the thing. I feel like Carpenter's main asset for this movie in particular is casting.
Yeah.
Because Jostin has the face of, like, a seasoned, like, old school actor. He looks like somebody you would see in, like, Gunsmoke or Bonanza, or you can see him on the set of Rio Bravo. He looks like an old school actor.
But then he's got the coolness of, like, Bogey, McQueen.
Yeah, he looks like somebody who could have been, like, a movie star mm-hmm. in, like, the early 60s. And then you can even say that about Zimmer.
Yeah.
She looks like one of those, like, femme fatales mm-hmm. that you would see in, like, a Double Indemnity. Really, she strikes me as somebody who can deliver that kind of fast and sardonic dialogue of, like, a Howard Hawks comedy.
Even a Mae West, she could probably just drop a line and it's just like, oh, wow, I just barely got that. That was clever, but it was also funny and cool at the same time.
And that's the thing. It is so fascinating to me that that's what Carpenter's putting his money into in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's putting his money into getting good actors, because he can't afford movie stars. Just plain and simple. He can't afford movie stars. So he's going to find the best actors he can, and then all the money he's going to put in is making the movie look as good as possible. Famously, he doesn't shoot this on 16 like a lot of low-budget films. He gets a 35 Panavision. He does the full-board professional film crew. He goes a lot of money into his sound design. Mm-hmm. And because he's doing the score himself, saves money there. He has Tommy Lee Wallace and him are doing the sound work mm-hmm. in post, so he's saving money there. And then it's one set and then guerrilla filmmaking on the streets of Los Angeles.
Oh, hell yeah. And I mean, you feel like you're in there. I mean, even it was giving me Reservoir Dog vibes when they're traveling around in the car. and then you see the guys sitting around in the car and they're just driving around with the silencer like poked out of the window.
Yes.
And they pull it back in, and I was just like, that's terrifying, being, a person walking down the street and you don't know that someone could potentially shoot you with a silencer. No one's going to hear, and no one's going to help you, just like one of the most horrific scenes in the movie.
Yes, and that actually leads us into the third ongoing plotline, because the first one is Bishop, he's going in and he's closing down the precinct. The second one is Bishop and the prisoners, and they're being taken off to a maximum security prison so he can wait out a sentence or death row and whatnot. And then this third one is the gang members are cruising along and they're going to find somebody to kill. And they come across a father and daughter who stop off on a side road so the father can use the payphone because he's kind of lost. He's lost in LA.
Well, he's lost, and he's also going to
his mother's house to get her out of the city. That's the context I picked up.
And the daughter, he's like, he's training her, okay, when they ask you this, say this, and that. And the daughter, being a little girl, is just asking, why? Why are we doing this? And when they stop at the payphone, there just so happens to be an ice cream truck that's parked not too far from the payphone. And this guy, I don't know if he's like a private detective or if he's with the police force. He's there taking notes.
No, he's just an ice cream man. He's just tallying up the end of the day.
Is he? I thought he was taking notes because the car keeps going back and forth.
No, that's another thing. It's really, you could probably infer that because he is just stopped there and it doesn't look like he's actually trying to sell ice cream. He's like, I think what he is he's an ice cream man who's tallying notes and he has just a gun in the truck in case you get robbed.
Because I interpreted that, they just were able to like commandeer a truck and, okay, throw on the shirt, sit here and kind of surveil. Because when I saw him, with the notepad, I thought, oh, maybe he's trying to get the license number from the car.
Yeah.
Because, they keep saying all day that, all hell's broken loose in Los Angeles and, people are getting shot and it's mayhem. So I just assumed he's one of the detectives out there surveying the streets and kind of like, okay, I've got a tip on this street. They're moving this way, that way.
I love that reading because it still makes sense, too. Like, that's actually really interesting because that's a level onto the movie that I've never seen before. Is that guy could just be a PI and not just an ice cream man, but I like that. I like that read.
Or but he's just an ice cream man who's unfortunately in the wrong place.
In the fucking ice cream truck. But then the little girl who's played by Kim Richards.
Yes.
As she goes up to the ice cream truck, gets her chocolate swirl, and she's like, as she's like trotting back, she's like, oh, this isn't chocolate swirl, this is just vanilla. And when she goes back, the fucking warlord has already killed the ice cream man. And then he
hasn't died yet.
He's just shot him.
He shot him twice in the back.
And then she's like, hey, this is just vanilla. And the guy doesn't even look at her, just boom, blows Kim Richards away.
And and
you see it.
Yeah, it's not suggested. It's a full-blown shot that you see. And I've been surprised with movies, but this was one of those times where like I physically reacted. I made like a noise. I was just like, oh my god, because you don't see that in movies, especially with children, like The Untouchables, when they blow up the bar and the little girl's trying to hand the briefcase back to the guy that's loaded with the explosives. They pan away and you're just, okay, she was in there. But to see a child actually be taken down, I was just like, how? This is horrific.
And she's equipped. There's a squib on her. Blood goes off. And it's one of those things where it's so transgressive, especially in 76. Yeah. And the other thing is, so I love this story. So they are showing this at Cannes. They take it off. They're showing it at a film festival. They're showing it at Cannes. George Romero's there. And George Romero here's like, oh, there's this movie playing. And the director says he's inspired by my work. Okay, I'll go give it a watch. I'll see what all the fuss is about. And George Romero was already like, I made Night of the Living Dead. I made Dawn of the Dead. I made Martin. I think that's what it is. He was featuring Martin. And he's like, I am the fucking transgressive god. I am pushing the boundaries of what cinema can take. And he's watching the movie. And when the little girl is shot, he's like, well, what the fuck? I can't beat this. Like that is the most like messed up thing you can do on screen.
Yeah.
How can I compete with this guy? And that's the thing. John Carpenter is like,
I'm John Carpenter.
I'm John Carpenter. I'm here. Like, this is how I'm willing to push the envelope this far. What can you give me?
Yeah, I was just so shocked and gutted when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, I don't like to see any child get hurt or anything. So I was just like, what just happened? And I'm like, well, this is kind of big because you don't see this in movies. And I know this movie kind of struggled here, but I know early in the 90s, Mel Gibson did an interview, and he brought up the movie, and he talked about how there's this scene in the movie, and it's only happened once or twice in films. Apart from that, after that interview, the tape rentals on this movie went up because everyone was so curious about it. And I was just like, I just watched it yesterday. I can't believe what I watched. It's just so shocking.
And it's a thing where even now, people
we don't want to see this.
Yeah, and especially because usually stuff like this happens and it's like, oh, a kid died, but it's like it's off screen, or if the kid dies, then it's like in a movie where it's trying to be like gross and disturbing.
Yeah.
This is like an action movie, and a little girl dies, and you're like, oh my god. And it's broad daylight, it's not played for scare, and it's so sudden and quick. It's really a commentary about like gangland violence. People just die.
And the fact that the father leaves his daughter's body laying on the floor to go chase these gang members.
Okay. I loved this performance because the father, he runs up and he is like, he's not even screaming. It's not like a no yelling it at the gods. He's just like confused. He's just over his daughter's dead body, and he just can't comprehend what's going on, and he doesn't say anything, and he's like quivering as he's like putting his jacket over his daughter, and he's like sobbing over her body when the ice cream man's like, gun under the dash, and then he dies because it's a movie.
Yeah.
And then I love this, the dad's like, I'm Charles fucking Bronson, I'm gonna go ghost these motherfuckers. And it's great because you believe it.
Yeah, I mean, revenge, but I mean, you also don't leave your daughter lying there. It's just like, at least, take her with you, put her in the back of your car, so she's not just a body laying, on the sidewalk. But I'm gonna...
Charles Bronson will leave the body. He's on revenge.
But I'm gonna tie this back to Halloween, because Kim Richards does have some relevance.
I know this. I know this one.
Do you? Because she is Kyle Richards' sister, who is in Halloween.
Yes, I heard of this because this is a thing that happens with Carpenter a lot. And even with this movie, because Nancy Loomis and Charles Cyphers, they both show up in Halloween, his very next movie. And I would imagine he was probably like, oh, Kim Richards, I'll just bring you in for the next one, but she probably aged out of the role of... Yeah,
because she's a couple years older than her sister Kyle, so they're like, well, basically... There are, I think, 3 sisters, and I don't remember if the oldest sister acted too, or she just did modeling. She's Kathy Hilton of
the Hilton Fortune.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that's another thing. John Carpenter is 2 or 3 degrees separation from Paris Hilton.
Oh, yeah. Super close. But, Kyle ended up being Lindsay Wallace in Halloween, and then our other tie-in is Donald Pleasance, who isn't in the film.
Yes.
But his daughters were such a fan of this movie that he was kind of like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll try out for Halloween. And then after that, he was like, I love John Carpenter. Let's do all your movies together. That's
the thing. It's the soundtrack they loved. Yeah. And that's another thing we got to point out.
Yeah.
The soundtrack to this movie is so good.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like 76, and it's like a synth soundtrack, but it's old school. So they're programming the synthesizer. It's old tubes and shit, and it's like a Frankenstein machine to play.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter, he famously writes the whole score in like a day or 3. It's something super short. And he blows out the whole thing in like a week. And he's like, it saves me money. I can just do it myself. And that is a theme throughout his career. He's like, I can save money by just scoring the movie myself. I know what I want. I don't have to explain it to anybody. And I save a shit ton of money. And that's Carpenter to a T throughout his entire career. If he can find a way to do it himself, he'll do it.
Yeah.
He edits this movie, but he puts a fake name on it because he doesn't want people to think, oh, he did everything.
Yeah. Wrote it, directed it, scored it, edited it.
He's an extra in the scene.
He's one of the gang members that gets blown out of a window. Which, I read that afterwards. I was like, damn, I wish I'd been paying a little bit more attention. But I don't think I could have seen,
You can't tell, because he says, I'm the one that's blown out the window. I'm like, there's 5 of you.
Yeah.
And none of you I can see your faces.
Yeah. But to take it back to earlier when I said, it didn't do too well initially on its release here because, this is the home of the Western films.
It's a B movie.
Yeah, so over in the UK, there was a British distributor that put out the film. I think he saw it, and he's like, let me submit it into this festival. And it ended up taking the top prize because I guess the UK people aren't used to a lot of Westerns like we are, so it was just kind of like, oh, cool, like, a modern day Western, this is awesome. So it won, it got Carpenter money, and it was just a big deal over there. So I guess when he was writing Halloween, he was like, you know what, I want to kind of like pay homage to this guy that really helped me out when I didn't ask him for help. And his name was Michael Myers.
Oh, jeez.
So I was like, yes, this makes so much sense.
Yes, Assault on Precinct 13 is the seed in which all of Carpenter grows out of.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another thing. The movie is so bare bones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super simple because, the father goes off and he chases down the killer.
The killers.
Kills the killer, or kills the white warlord, and then the other warlords are like...
he is the killer. He is the gunman.
They're all killers. He kills him, and then he's like, realizes, oh shit, there's more of them, and I'm out of bullets. So he runs into the police station, and that's when we begin the siege. And the siege is great, because that's when Lieutenant Bishop has to, take charge of everything. He has to be the strong leader, and he refuses to give up the father because he knows what's going to happen, and that's not the right thing to do. He releases Napoleon Wilson because we need his help. Even though he's killed people, this guy, we need his help. And in his eyes, I can trust this man. Same with Wells. And Lee is just being the baddest bitch on the planet, takes a shot in the shoulder, and she's like, nah, fuck you, and then kills like 15 dudes one arm.
Well, that, and I could also see like where this also takes stories from mythology. What is it, the monster where if you cut off one head, more heads grow?
The Hydra.
The Hydra, there you go. And it's like, that's what we're getting. He kills the gunman that killed his daughter, but then more men approach, and then more and more men keep descending. It's like, my god, how big is this gang? And it's like they keep shooting them out, and then just more people keep arriving on the precinct, and it's just like, holy crap, how are they going to survive with limited ammunition and weapons?
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it, because this is where Carpenter puts all the money in, is when it's the siege. He didn't skimp out on this, even though it's shot in a way where it's super simple. Guy comes into the window, cut to Napoleon Wilson blasting with a shotgun, cut back, the guy falls out the window. And it's just that repeated, but it's cut so fast, the sound's so hard, and it's so intense, and it doesn't break. We watched the whole siege for like 5-10 minutes, and it's heart racing, it's pounding, and it's going.
Especially when you see, what is it, Bishop, he checks his, his watch from how long the dad arrives to when all this is going on, and he's like, it's only been 30 minutes, and I'm like, my god, it feels like this has been going on for hours, that they've been trapped in there trying to fight off these, gang members, and it's like, no, it's only been half an hour, and no one's coming to help them.
And that's another thing that I think Carpenter really picks out about Los Angeles, especially at this time.
Yeah.
Because where they are, it's like, they're in the middle of a city. It is Los Angeles. But you look outside and it's just empty.
Yeah.
Because this is before LA got like really developed, where you could really kind of, if you were a, disreputable person, you could legit dump a body in 100 places in LA and no one would notice for a while. And where they're shooting, because I think they're shooting in Watts, right? And I know, and they're doing it for the, the exteriors they're shooting in Watts. And they're doing that so they get the aesthetic of kind of a rundown, kind of a beat up little neighborhood where if they hear gunfire, they're probably not going to call the cops. They know what's going on. And it's and it's a thing where Carpenter's almost making like a socio-political commentary where
there's a war going on in this little section of LA, and the cops aren't coming.
But I mean, even now, in the neighborhoods we live in, we hear loud noises all the time, and sometimes it's like, okay, I know that's fireworks, and other times like, was that a gunshot or was that a firework? And it's like, well, I can't see it, so I can't really call and report anything because I don't know what it was.
And here's the other thing. In Los Angeles, if you wanted to shoot somebody, you need to wait until the Dodgers win a game. No one will hear the gunshots. Fireworks blasting off everywhere. Straight up, I know the days I cannot sleep, and that coincides with Dodgers home games.
Well, that's also big fights, too.
Yeah.
Like MMA or UFC. I mean, I've noticed that in recent years. Like, if someone wins, like Canelo wins...
Oh, God.
We get, a fireworks show, so it's just like... I don't have to watch, I have to know that the night's over.
I have no meme, no hyperbole. If every time Canelo has won a bout, a mariachi band begins playing not 3 blocks from my house, and they do not end till 4 a.m.
Well, I mean, isn't that one of your neighbors? They always have parties, and there's always music.
Yes, but it's coincidentally, every time Canelo wins, somebody starts playing a mariachi band.
It's a big deal, I'm sorry.
What? Do they have a mariachi band on call for this? That's what I want to know.
I mean...
Because it's not a recording.
No, I mean...
look back, and there's a fucking mariachi, guys.
Yeah, it happens.
But besides the point.
You gotta party when you want to party.
Besides the point. This is the neighborhood, and it's great because Carpenter spends the whole first half of the movie establishing that this neighborhood is desolate. It is so weird to see LA empty.
Yeah.
And I know it's not like an LA neighborhood, it's not like city proper.
Yeah.
But there's nobody on the streets.
But we also see the frustration of the cops that are in the car trying to find out where the noise is coming from. And even they, who are moving continuously, are struggling to find where the sound is coming from.
Yeah.
And that's still very valid to today, where, could hear explosions or loud noises, and you can't find it unless you are, like, physically, oh, hey, this is coming from right next door, and I can see it, and I could hear it, I could smell it. But otherwise, the sound's just gonna bounce, and then you get the, oh, well, yeah, but the helicopter's busy right now, so I guess just keep driving around till you see something. And gotta go.
And it builds up more tension because us as the audience, oh, come on.
It's like, we know.
You're like right down the street,
and
but
it's
the gang members are mythical.
Well, they're mythical, but also
disappeared.
The cop that's driving the car isn't listening to his partner who keeps saying, you know what, I've got a bad feeling. Why don't we check the abandoned precinct? I've just got a gut feeling. And the lead driver, no, nothing's going to happen there. It's an empty building. And it's like, wouldn't that be the perfect place for something to happen? An empty building?
But again, that's why he's not acting dumb. That driver is not acting dumb. He's just acting kind of logical. He's like, it's not an abandoned police station. It's been abandoned for months. It's been abandoned for like 3 hours.
He's being logical, but he's also frustrated. And I think the frustration is starting to take over from, hey, maybe I should, tap into his gut instinct, and maybe we should go check and see what's going on down there.
But then they get shot up.
They get shot up after, one of the most iconic horror tropes where, oh, it's raining.
As soon as it starts raining.
And it's like, oh, wait, there's no rain. Why is there a sound of, rain hitting the car? And there is the repairman from the phone lines, because all the phone lines in the city or this immediate area have been cut out by the gang members, so the precinct can't call anybody. And there's the poor guy trapped in the cords, just bleeding out. And I was just like, of course it is, because this is a horror movie.
It's so good, because it's playing with horror tropes, it's playing with action tropes, it's playing with these Western tropes, and it all pays off. But the siege happens, the cops get got, and the survivors are like, all right, we got to make our last stand. We got to make the Alamo here. We're going to go down to the basement. I'm going to set up some of the evidence we have, which is these basically giant propane tanks. Basically, I think they're acetylene tanks of just like the highly flammable explosive liquid. I'm going to set them up at one end of the corridor, and we're going to be in the back. We're going to try and get as many of them down here, hold them off as long as we can, and then I'm going to blow the gas tanks. And
with 3 rounds.
With 3 rounds. And you're like, oh shit, this is gonna get good. And they're getting ready. And that's when you have the whole, anybody got a smoke? And Lace like, here, have some sexual tension for you. And you're like, oh god, it's gonna happen.
I mean, we didn't even talk about the first time that they actually get into, like, where the cells are.
Oh, yeah.
Where they come in through the back door, because people are trying to, like, the other deputies are trying to get back on the police bus to, like, flee out of there. And you've got people in the back, they shoot them up, and they're able to come through that back door. And that's when Lee gets shot in the arm. And, her and Napoleon kind of have that scene where he saves her. And, I mean, I have seen people break their arms in movies.
I knew you were going to say it.
That was so gnarly, the way he just lifted him up in the air and broke his arm. I was like, oh my god!
That is one of those effect shots where if you watch it now, you're like, man, that's like a... And it's like just a broom with some whatever wrapped around it. It's fine. But you watch it in the moment, you're like, oh god! Oh, that's some like Anderson Silva breaking his shin bone kind of shit.
I hate when you show me those videos. You're like, oh hey, let me show you this from a fight last night, and you see the guy's arm break or his leg break. I'm like, why?
It's fascinating stuff.
But seeing it in that moment, I wasn't expecting it. I'm like, just the sheer power of Napoleon, just to lift the dude up in the air and break his arm and throw him across the cells. Like, holy crap!
And that's when you realize, okay, Napoleon's not all talk.
No.
It's not like in other movies that kind of follow this line where you have a guy who's a prisoner and he's a badass.
Well, Con Air, when they're like, oh yeah, this is the scariest guy of all time, he's still alive and we're transporting him.
And it's Steve Buscemi.
It's this little guy and it's like, really? You're like the most notorious serial killer ever? And then that's why, it's kind of smart they did it with this movie. We don't get too much backstory on Napoleon and the things he's done. Mm-hmm. But it's like, yeah, I could see, he'd be unsuspecting and then, he could be a killing machine when he needs to be.
And I think that's the smart thing about the movie, is we don't get a lot of backstory on anybody. We know a little bit about Bishop. He's from the neighborhood, and he became a cop and whatnot. Yeah. That's about it. Wilson, he killed some guys, but we have no context. And he's super shady about it. He doesn't want to give context to anything. He wants to be mysterious. Yeah. He wants to be cool, and he's very snarky about it. I love that line, where it's Wilson, you're a lot of things. You're snarky, you're smart. I don't know about you. I'm an asshole. You got to remember that. I love that. I love that shit so much. I'm pretty sure I butchered the line, but I love how snarky he is in the movie. Yeah, he's a smart ass, but it's like you feel empathy towards him because it's like, I like you. I don't know what you've done, and you've clearly done horrible things, but it's like, I still like you. And he has some of the most like he has the best lines in the movie. Yeah. And I think that really helps you connect with him, especially some of the lines that are subtle, but you understand how tragic he is. Mm-hmm. He's like, days are like women. They show up and they always run away from me. And it's like, oh, that's rough, bro. That's sad. Or what is it? Don't worry, come on, we gotta hurry up. We're running out of time. Running out of time? I've been running out of time my entire life. Yeah. It's so good, because again, they're tough guy lines that should be so cheesy, eye-rolly, like, oh, okay, you're trying to be the badass. And the guy delivers it like a champ. Yeah. But I mean, he's able to show empathy, like when Wells discovers, they all discover, that there is a pothole outside that connects to the bottom of the precinct. Yes. And I think they do like a coin toss or whatever. No, they want to do a coin toss, but Wells is like, I got bad luck. I never win no coin tosses. But if I'm going to do it, we're going to do it my way. How's that, Wells? Potatoes. And they play potatoes, which I have no idea how to play it, and it looks ridiculous. It's grown men acting like children. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. That's 4 potato, right. 5 potato, 6 potato, more. And they're doing that shit. And it's so weird and dumb and out of place, and you laugh at it. But then when Wells is like, well, shit, I lost. All right, well, I'll go out there. And then Napoleon is like, all right, when you get out there, before you make your run to the border, try and call for help. Wells is like, I got you, Napoleon. It's so good. So good. Tony Burton is so good as Wells. And Jocelyn is so good as Wilson, and they play off each other so great in that scene. And you really feel when Wells dies.
Oh, yeah. Except for Bishop, where he's like, oh, that window cracked. Windows crack all the time. And Lee and Napoleon are just kind of shaking their heads like, no, windows just don't suddenly pop and the car comes to a dead stop for no reason. And I was just like, Wells, you were so close.
That's why
you gotta check your back seat.
That's why I love Bishop so much, is because he's so just, man,
lawful good.
Lawful good. I'm like, we really gotta get out of here. Like, please, can this just work just once? But he finally gets the plan. They're down in the basement. The gangs, they're making their last hurrah. Because they just killed the police officers. They know the cops are showing up. So they're making their last hurrah to get these guys. And they make the siege. And it looks like 100 of these fuckers are in this hallway. It looks packed. But you know there's only like 12.
And after seeing this scene, I'm wondering if Edgar Wright borrowed this for the end of Shaun of the Dead.
He had to.
Because when they're at the bottom of the bar and like the storage area, they only have a couple of rounds of ammunition, and they're trying to figure out, well, do we kill ourselves? Do we kill them? Oh, we could blow shit up. And I'm like, that's got to be where this came from, because it's just, really, you think with 3 rounds of ammunition, you could blow up that tank, kill the guys, and save yourselves.
Well, they do.
I mean, I was so impressed when they have, like, the makeshift wall that they have between them and the gang members, and they're just using anything they can to beat the crap out of them from the other side. And I was just like, okay, you gotta hold on with one hand, and you're just swinging, trying to hit anything while he's trying to make sure he gets that shot.
And that moment is when it's full zombie movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's full zombie movie at that point.
Well, it's the same with the back scene where they have the cells when they first come in, and they're just running through that open back door. Yeah. And I'm like, that is a total zombie movie.
Yeah.
Just terrifying.
And it's so good, because they find, and honestly, the ending of this movie is great.
Yeah.
Because Bishop blows up the tanks, the gang members are dead, the cops show up, it's over, and then the EMTs come in and they're taking them away, and they're like, all right, you're injured, we'll take care of you. And then the cops come down, and they're like, all right, Napoleon Wilson, time to go. And Bishop's like, no,
I gotta stop you there.
You gotta stop me there?
Yeah, because the EMTs try to take Lee.
That's right. And Lee and Napoleon are trying to have the fucking moment.
Yeah,
right?
And he's like, ma'am, we gotta,
get you on a stretcher and get you out of here.
There you go, we got a stretcher for you. And it's just that quiet, just they're talking to each other through each other's eyes. And then she's the one that breaks and walks away up the stairs like, I don't need no help. I'll walk out there on my own. I'm not going to say goodbye to you, even though I probably will never see you ever again.
That is the bad bitch moment.
Oh yeah, I was just like, bravo, give her the Academy Award.
You're like, not since Ellen Ripley have we had a female lead so strong.
I mean, that woman in that scene is going to live in my heart forever. I was just like, that is one of the baddest bitches ever, and I love her. But then we have an equally badass scene right after.
Yeah, because cops come down there and they're like, all right, Wilson, they're trying to put the cuffs on him. And Bishop's like, no, this man saved my life. And then they look at each other and he's like, Wilson, it'd be an honor if I can walk out this building with you side by side. And Wilson's like, that'd be mighty nice. And the two of them walk out with the smoke in the fucking hallway. Mm-hmm. And it's like the dust is settling after the fucking shootout at the OK Corral. The sirens are going. You can see the lights and shit. It's like, and then it just fucking ends. And I'm like, that is so fucking cool.
And it's not even just him yelling no at the other officer. He shoves him out of the frame. It's like he went to like go and like grab Wilson's wrist to like detain him. And Bishop's just like, fuck no, yeet, sends him flying off. And you never see the cop, even as they're walking up the stairs, like, did he shove him like into the pile of the bodies?
No, he shoved him into the fourth wall. He is gone. He's an audience
gone
member
forever.
Now. And that's the movie.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where Assault on Precinct 13, I think, is one of like the best siege movies. It's like so bare bones, it's so simple. It's a cheap movie. Like the movie is shot and you can tell it's low budget, but it doesn't look that low budget.
No,
like,
and the creativity of, okay, this was a farmer precinct, everything in it is gone now, which makes sense for, we don't need to have a ton of desks, we don't need this, we don't need that. It's abandoned for a reason.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, the design of the movie looks so good, and it really plays into the fact that Carpenter wants to make a Western.
Yeah.
You know, the inside of the precinct looks a little bit like a Western saloon at times.
I mean, let alone when the dad runs into the precinct and the doors on the precinct are just swinging like old saloon doors in a Western movie. I was like, I fucking love this. Okay, I totally get that this is the concept that he's trying to go for.
Oh, and I want to say this because Assault on Precinct 13, I said it before, it is the seed in which Carpenter's career grows out of. And we'll speak on that for a second. Because after this, he does Halloween. Mm-hmm. After Halloween, he does The Fog. And those 3 movies, that's him getting a little bit more money to show that he can make a movie.
Yeah.
This movie, $100,000. Halloween, $300,000.
Yeah.
The Fog, $1 million. Each of them turns a profit, and the Assault on Precinct 13, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
This is where he really figures out how to make a feature film for not a lot of money and getting the most out of it.
I mean, let alone just the creativity he's able to come up with for a story. Because, I mean, there's tons of movies now where there's so much money put into them, and you go and there's so much hype, and you watch it and you're like, really? That's it?
That happens so often because so many movies, at least a lot of the genre stuff I see now, are stuff that are, like, ripping off Carpenter specifically, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Or it's a thing where that's an interesting concept, but the execution's not there. Or the execution's there, but it's on a really kind of tried and true concept, so it's not that original.
Or let's just go for another remake of a classic film, and it's just like, don't touch the classic films, leave them alone.
The Assault on Precinct 13 isn't even immune from that.
It's, 2005 that it got a remake?
2005 or 2003. I've seen the remake. I saw the remake before I saw the original. It has Ethan Hawke in it, Lawrence Fishburne. It switches the roles up a lot, and you have, like, the police are sieging the precinct. It's because Lawrence Fishburne's character is supposed to be a mob boss that's in bed with the police.
Oh, okay.
And this police unit who's, in bed with him is trying to kill him before he goes on trial or whatever.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's interesting because they take the concept of an abandoned police station under siege and they twist it a little bit to make it new.
Yeah.
But it's still a early 2000s action movie, and it's too slick to really be this kind of a gritty thing that Carpenter has. So
I like this concept more, where it's just not what you expect. You know, not what the characters expect. Okay, I'm closing out a building to move on to a building that's a couple miles away.
Yeah.
And not expecting local gangs to descend and basically try to kill all of us in here without leaving a single trace. And also, that leaves the question, what happened to all the bodies? They took them away, and it's like, well, where did they take them?
That's why I was saying, the gang, they're mythical.
Yeah.
They're monsters. They are supernatural. That is the thing about them that makes them so scary, because they look like humans, but they don't act like humans. Yeah. They move like people, but they don't like communicate at all like humans do. They
like Michael Myers.
Like Michael Myers. They just look at somebody and then they go on. Like, that's it. And I think, like you say, Carpenter takes a lot from what he does here and carries on with it. Michael Myers, for instance, I really think, like, the White Warlord, played by Frank Doubleday, who shows up again in, like, a bunch of other movies. A lot of Michael Myers is in that character. He walks slow, very deliberate. He doesn't seem like he has any emotion to him as he's killing people.
He hits his target and he continues.
Yeah, he's a force of nature. And I think that's a thing that Carpenter takes on when he makes Halloween. And for The Fog, he kind of rebuilds that siege element, but he goes all the way with it, and they are actually mythical creatures. Yeah. They are ghosts. And that's the thing that I find so interesting of Assault on Precinct 13. It's kind of the blueprint for his first, like, era of films.
Yeah.
So how would you rank Assault on Precinct 13? Recommend?
Definitely 2 thumbs up. Highly recommend it. I'm probably gonna go watch it again, because I mean, it was a wild movie in a good way.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those 70s action movies that I could recommend to anybody. It's super fun. It's super cool. You will definitely fall in love with at least one of the characters in this, and it will be a great ride. Napoleon. And it's 90 minutes. It's a tight movie, and it feels tight. It's a fast movie,
yeah.
So, highly recommend.
Highly recommend. So that leads us to next week.
Yes, next week. So we talked about Carpenter kind of making his calling card.
Yeah.
He's a director that can work on a low budget and turn out a real movie. Like a real movie. Now, the next movie is what happens when you give Carpenter not $1 million, not $2 million, but a $6 million budget. A real, decent budget, first time in his career, to make one of the coolest action movies ever with Escape from New York.
Okay. I've never seen it before.
Oh, you've never seen Escape from New York?
Never seen it before. I know Kurt Russell is... I was going to say your boy, but I think he is your man.
Kurt Russell is one of my favorite actors, specifically because his appearance in the John Carpenter universe.
Especially Big Trouble.
Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing, all of them. All the movies he's in are great. But I'm very excited because Escape from New York, it is like the movie in which Robert Rodriguez saw and decided, I'm going to make that movie forever.
Yeah.
It is super fun. It is a lot of action. It is going to be really impressive when you watch it. And when we get a little bit more into how it was made and all that stuff. But Escape from New York, it's going to be great. Two thumbs up for everybody out there. Let's go give it a watch.
All right, I'm excited. And if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That's The Film Vault on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe on any of our videos. They come out every week.
And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram at The Film Club Podcast, where we post our adventures, upcoming episodes. We're going to do trivia, and a ton more things.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at The Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.